Hello, I'm Terry Nealey, your 16th District State Representative. Thank you for joining me on Legislative Update. A few days ago, several corrections officers from the state penitentiary in Walla Walla came to my office. They asked me to sponsor legislation on their behalf, which they believe will help to deter assaults against corrections officers. I introduced House Bill 3008. The measure would allow money to be deducted from an inmate's wages, gratuities, or workers' compensation benefits if they assault a corrections officer. A court would have to award a civil judgment to a corrections officer for this to kick in. But essentially what it means is that if an inmate assaults a corrections officer, that inmate could have monetary consequences imposed. Working inside a prison is inherently dangerous. And as recently as last week, there was a big fight that broke out in the penitentiary and quickly escalated to involve more than 50 prisoners. So 4 units were placed on lockdown, and I'm thankful none of our guards were injured. There are several means of consequences prisoners face if they attempt to harm an officer. But we also know giving prisoners who have already lengthy sentences a longer time to serve for engaging in assault is not as effective as hitting them directly in the pocketbook. Inmates are compensated for working within the prison walls, but they don't make very much money. The officers from Walla Walla told me that other states which have used this law have found it very effective as a deterrent against inmate assaults on prison guards. If it takes away privileges of what their small amount of money can buy, I believe this measure could help us curb assaults against officers. The law already sets up a formula of deductions in how inmates' money can be used according to his or her obligations. Money is withheld to satisfy child support payments, pay for incarceration, provide a percentage to the state general fund, and satisfy any legal financial obligations owed to court. Those priorities would continue to be paid. The bill I am proposing would also set aside 20% of earnings from inmates who have assaulted an officer. We want to make sure that our corrections officers remain safe, and this is another tool to help ensure that goal. Now, let's talk about agriculture. Our local farmers are always looking for an alternative crop to grow, and many Eastern Washington farmers and the State Farm Bureau were supportive of efforts in 2006 to establish a minimum biodiesel fuel content requirements in our state. Many people thought the establishment of a renewable fuel standard would create a market that would use crops grown here in Washington for biofuels, and the state ferries would be some of the largest users of this fuel. Now, I'm no fan of mandates, but if you promise something to people, and especially our farmers, you need to keep it. But at some point, the ferries were exempted. And of course, after that, the market to grow these crops never materialized because the demand was not as great as if the ferries would have been on board. Anyway, last week, the House Technology, Energy, and Communications Committee approved House Bill 2504. It updates the renewable fuel standards for biodiesel, and the committee accepted my amendment to place the ferries back on board with the requirements. It is my hope this will help to create a larger market for biofuel, and that our farmers can benefit from growing the additional crops needed to supply that market. I want to invite you to contact my office at any time you have questions, comments, or helpful information. You will find my contact number here on the screen. Again, thank you for joining me on Legislative Update. I'm your State Representative, Terry Nealey.